should we strive for connection? If all attachment is somewhat the cause of our, trouble and pain, why should we try to attach? I think that, you know, in saying that there is a link between attachment and suffering, um, it kind of disregards some of the positive to being connected to, whether that be like people or things or, a circumstance or, like anything one can find association with. But we have to also realize that some of this association it has to do with our ego, you know, taking part of things which, don't really include us, you know, putting ourselves in things, once again, that aren't necessarily related to us. But is that necessarily a negative thing? I mean, if all our interaction is mostly social and who we are as people is only, developed through that type of stimulation, then why not connect? I mean, I think that connection overall is a beautiful thing. It's what allows us to, you know, pinpoint parts of ourselves that we think should undergo any type of change. And I'm not saying like you're changing for another person or another thing. Rather, you know, you could always be a better person. You can always be better than you were the day before. And it's not necessarily in reference to another person to know that you need to, work on some things. It's more so a realization that it's basically giving yourself another perspective to see yourself from. Because if you're only looking through the world of I, me, and myself, then life is left unexplored. Feelings and things like that, I feel like they have to be given. Otherwise, you know, where they're going, they're not yours to just sit and hoard. And also with, those feelings of connection and contentment, you find yourself labored with envy and, other negative emotions associated with that. And it's come to me that there's no real appropriate reason to allow yourself, well, not really not allow yourself, but to be stuck within that feeling. Of course, you can allow yourself to feel that initial feeling, but I feel like sometimes our envy is labored within our minds. Like it's a constant projection of our own insecurities and other things that don't allow us to move forward from a situation. And ultimately, the only one who feels those types of negative emotions are us. The people who are feeling that envy. It's not gonna come out into the world and make other people feel a certain way. You're the only person who's gonna experience that. And I don't know if it's an ego thing or some other thing in my experience, but it feels like somewhat subservience to other people's, daily dealings. It's once like positing yourself in places you are not. But I think one way to rebuke this is to focus on the connection on the individual level. You know, focus on the way and how that thing makes you feel just between you and that thing. It's not necessarily in relation to others. Like I don't know. I feel like people often neglect what they have and uh, seeing what others have. It's that type of comparison that strips away the joy of everything that we actually do possess, we do contain. So what we should do is, ground ourselves in the present once more and allow ourselves to see the beauty in things that we already have. I don't think that anything is inherently like gets less beautiful over time. We just become numb to its beauty because of our own ignorance. So I guess, seek out everything that is. Like, it doesn't change from day to day. Just like how you don't. Like, how we wake up one morning and think we look attractive and wake up the next and think we don't. And in reality, we're the same exact person. There's nothing that's inherently changing in us that makes us less attractive one day and more attractive the other. It's simply just the way at which we choosing or, you know, choosing on a base level. Like, most people don't have that type of control, but choosing to look at the world. And I feel like it does take conscious effort sometimes in order to flip the script. Sometimes you just wake up and have those types of thoughts and feelings, but ultimately it's up to you and it's in your hands to go out and live a way that you think you should live. Like, in my last video, I talked about helping yourself. Like, if you're viewing yourself as someone you ought to be helping, then how much would you allow yourself to be like muddled up and stuck within these, the mundane aspects of our life that causes so much, pain and anxiety? If we were truly helping ourselves, and a lot of this stuff would not be as much of a, I don't even know how to articulate it. But, yeah, if we were helping ourselves, we wouldn't allow ourselves to do some of these things. And if we treated ourselves as if we would treat our own friend, then that type of connection would allow you to kind of separate yourself from the external ones. Like, if your relationship with yourself is actually founded and has a great foundation, then everything else will be built upon it, but your foundation still remains. And I feel like other people base their foundations on their relationships with other people and other things, and once those dissipate, then they're no longer allowing themselves to be themselves, associating part of themselves and their identity in a relationship, in a connection, in a bond, in an interaction between people or things, rather than basing it off of who we are and who we know ourselves to be. And in this, we find ourselves, stuck, two stable structures causing each other to collapse. A whole nation of I, yet I is separation. I feel like there's a huge curtain between separation and connection. They're somewhat the same. Like, the only reason we feel separation is due to our connection. Me and I are the same, yet me is separate. All human, one nation of I is separation. I think everything, exists together. Everything's within, the curtain of our emotions and perceptions of things. Now, I can say that there are things that are just overtly, inherently bad, like traumatic things or anything that's a negative projection of whatever can happen, But in things like within ourselves, I believe that there's always room for growth and change and maybe a healthier way to alter perspective. Because, like, you can look at the world in a very negative light. And you could do that your entire life. But I personally don't know what would be left to gain if we're already giving up on, the world around us. We're often going to find what we're looking for, and if we're trapping ourselves within something that's not good, then, the only one that can open the door is us.